Hi, I'm Alessia, and I'm a life and mindset coach, and I'm here today to talk to you all about boundaries, specifically boundaries as a modern self-care practice. We're not going to waste any time, but before we dive in, I want you to get a notebook, a pen, whatever you need, maybe your favorite drink, some tea, some coffee, some wine, depending on when you're listening to this. And just, yeah, get into a really comfortable position in order for us to dive in. So I've got slides for everything. You're going to be able to follow along with everything I'm sharing with you today. And yeah, just let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is just that no is a complete sentence. This is a very famous and popular quote by Lamont, but I think it's really important for the discussion that we're going to have today. So I really want you guys to keep this in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation. So yeah, what are some of the benefits of boundaries? So the first benefit, of course, is increased levels of self-respect and self-confidence. I mean, that's kind of priceless, isn't it, right? You know your limits and your worth, and you're not questioning them, and you're not allowing other people to question them, which is massive. Number two, you have increased levels of respect from others. When people know your limits, first off, when you know your limits and you're able to enforce them and perhaps even communicate them, and people understand them, then they're not able to cross them or abuse them. And that's huge, right? That's massive because it sets up a line in the sand that we don't allow others to cross. And this line doesn't have to be like anything aggressive. It doesn't have to be necessarily even communicated to the other person. It's something that's true for you and that you hold dear, and that's the only thing that matters. Number three is better relationships in general. So you have relationships that are based on mutual respect and trust, and you're able to show up fully, really honoring yourselves and honoring yourself and the other person, and you can be authentic without fear of backlash. This is something that I've experienced in my relationships. I feel like it's so important for us to be able to show up fully and be exactly who we are and not have to make excuses or make up justifications for why something is important to us, for why we need something, whatever it might be. If we like something, we like it. If we want something, we want it. If we need something, we need it, and that's fine. That's justification enough. And those are the healthiest kinds of relationships, in my humble opinion. So let's move on to discussing what boundaries aren't. So boundaries aren't a discussion about time. You might actually have all the time in the world to do something, but you might not want to do it. And that's reason enough to not do it, in all honesty. It's hard in the modern world to justify that. You know, we are taught in a lot of ways to expect people to cross our boundaries. In certain instances, we are told that our boundaries will already be crossed. I remember when I was getting interviewed for jobs way back in the day, that one of the common questions that they'd ask you is, are you willing to work evenings and weekends? Are you willing to work holidays? Are you willing to travel? Are you willing to relocate? And these were not really questions. They were presumptions. You know, if people were assuming that you should do these things in order to get the job. And if you said no, it automatically made you less likely to get it or less qualified than maybe the other candidates. And that is something that for me crosses a boundary, but it's something that's really common and is expected in our culture. So we really want to keep in mind that boundaries are not about time, because just because you have the time to do something doesn't mean that you should do something. Okay. And that's kind of what I talk about in the next little bit there. Boundaries aren't about whether or not you can or are capable of doing something, but about doing the things that you want to do and that serve your ultimate health and happiness. So a personal example, aside from the one I just shared, sorry, went a little off script there, but last year I was invited to two weddings. I was asked to be a part of two weddings. And for anybody who's been a part of a wedding, I'm sure that you can commiserate with what I'm about to share. But weddings have a lot of events. They have a massive amount of responsibility involved, especially if you're part of the bridal party. And these two events for me seem to be never ending, never ending. And not only was there the wedding and the bachelor party and all of these other things that are kind of common and typical in weddings, but there seemed to be about a million sub events each. And it just really was overwhelming. And at the time, I also had in my personal life some issues, and I was suffering from mental health problems, and I was just feeling very anxious and depressed. And all of this kind of came together to kind of cause me to have very mediocre, substandard boundaries. I said yes when I shouldn't have, especially in this instance, because what would have been more important would have been maintaining my mental health. And I kind of took a pass on that, to be honest with you. I really didn't stand up for myself. So what kind of happened is, as the wedding stuff kept ramping up, kept getting bigger, kept becoming more invasive, I actually canceled an event that I really wanted to do, which was Thanksgiving dinner, simply because I didn't have energy left to do it. So we were so busy with all the preparations for these weddings that by the time it came around to actually host an event that I've been looking forward to, I just didn't have anything left to give. And so in order to carve out a little bit of space for myself, I ended up canceling it because I felt like I needed to. I felt like I needed that space more than I needed the dinner, especially because it was going to involve a lot of work and preparations. And so maybe you can do something, or you feel like you should do something, but that isn't necessarily a good enough reason. So this is kind of my pro tip. Check in first. So where is your energy at? How are you feeling about doing this thing? Is it happy and joyful, or are you feeling angry and resentful? You know, diving into briefly the law of attraction and this kind of idea of the way the world works, but even karma, if you believe in karma, like attracts like. So what you give, you get. And if you're doing something with an angry and resentful energy, we can't really expect to get something good out of that. We can't really even expect to enjoy it at the end of the day. And so it's really mindful to check in with yourself about how you're feeling and what you need right now. And like that's basically the basis of all personal development and self-care, self-help, all of that. What do you need to feel well in this moment? So if boundaries aren't about time, what are they about? Boundaries are about energy. So how are you showing up for yourself lately? Better yet, are you showing up for yourself at all? This is so important. It's the old adage, you know, of you can't pour from an empty cup. Yes, it's a cliche, but it's also a fact. And of course, as a kind and caring person, you want to show up for other people. You want to be there. You want to support them and do all the things that they require of you, that they need. You want to meet other people's needs. But you cannot do this when you're not showing up for yourself first, when you're not meeting your own needs first. It's not a negotiable, you know, it's not really up for discussion. It's not up for negotiation. If you don't take care of yourself, eventually you will run out of the energy to take care of other people. And so it's just good sense to take care of yourself first. And this is why boundaries, and why I titled this masterclass, you know, as a modern practice, a modern self-care practice, because when you have healthy boundaries set up, it allows you to show up better for other people. And not only that, but you encourage other people to have really healthy boundaries as well. And we could all, as a world, do better, do with some better boundaries. Sorry, said that a little funny. So when you aren't giving yourself what you need to feel good and fulfilled, you can't expect to be able to give that same kindness to others, at least long term. Okay, it's sort of a repetition of what I just said. If you're not giving it to yourself right now, eventually you will run out of steam and you will not be able to continue giving to others. So self-care isn't selfish. It's necessary. Another cliche and another truth, to be honest with you. Cliches always have a nugget of the truth in them, and this is one of them. You are important. You are worthy, and you deserve to have your needs met. And when your needs are met, you're better able to meet the needs of other people, period. There's really nothing else to say about it. So continuing this idea of boundaries are about energy, do you have the energy to show up for this event or that person? Okay. Can you be there present with your whole heart holding space? Are you distracted? This is another really good check-in to kind of gauge your energy and feel where you're at before you say yes to something. Because it can be anything. a lot of times when we talk about typical boundaries, we talk about maybe lines with families, we talk about being asked to attend an event that maybe we don't really want to go to, don't have time for, and we feel guilty saying no. But it can be other less obvious things as well. Like a friend calls you and they need support, they need love, they need to talk to you. And maybe you're not in a space to give that person the love and attention that they deserve. If someone comes to you with a problem, they want to feel heard, they want to feel seen, they want to feel understood. And it takes time, space, and energy in order for you to be able to do that. Now, I'm not encouraging you to be an asshole, of course. Like, you need to be kind and considerate and take into consideration where the other person is coming from, gauging whether or not this is an emergency. But there are other times where people might say, hey, I just want to chat. Do you have some time? And maybe you have some time, but you don't have the energy. And that is one of the most important things I want you to take away today. It's okay in those moments to say, listen, right now I can't. Is it possible that we do this another day? I'm just not really feeling up to it. Because that's the truth. You're not really feeling up to it. And there's no shame in that. We're not necessarily going to be at an energetic high all the time. And we're not necessarily going to be able to give endlessly to people. And we have a lot of demands on our time and energy, like work and children and partners and animals and, side gigs maybe, or building a business or learning something, or just self-care and time to relax. And all of that is something that you have to do for yourself, right? Things that require your energy. And on a given day, we're probably not going to be able to give our energy to every single one of those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I really hope that you take that away from this masterclass, that your boundaries are important, you are important, and you are allowed to show up to the best of your ability on any given day. And sometimes that means saying no to something that you'd like to do, saying no to someone that you love, or saying no to an opportunity that seems like it can't be missed. So yeah, let's keep diving in and see what else comes up for us. So a very important pause here, a word of warning. This is not a call for perfection. So you don't always need to show up for everyone and everything at 100%. I'm super guilty of this myself. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. The more kind, caring, compassionate, even empathetic you are, the more you feel obligated to show up at 150% every single day. It's not possible. Yes, we are energetic beings, and yes, we can tap into limitless energy. Fine. I'm not sure how much I believe the last one, but I know that there are people who believe that. And if that's a belief that's true for you, then that is perfect. But there are going to be days where the answer for you is a no, and that needs to be honored. It deserves to be honored. I really want you to take up away from this that the only way that you can show up 100% is if you start by showing up 100% for yourself first. So you know when you're within an inch of overdoing it. You know when you're about to cross your own boundary. You know when you're pushing at your own limits. And not in a healthy, I'm stretching my comfort zone kind of way, but in like, I don't have anything left to give, but I'm going to try and scrape the bottom of an already empty well to try and see what else I can get. The idea of bleeding a stone. You know when you're there. This is not about doing anything perfectly. This is about showing up to the best of your ability in all situations, but showing up with your best for yourself always and first in order to take care of other people. Okay? I really, really, really hope that this sinks in, because if you don't do this, if you don't take care of yourself, eventually that leads to burnout, to overwhelm, to anxiety, to depression, to illness. And it ultimately makes you unable to take care of other people. And so at the end of the day, even though we think we're being kind, we think we're being generous, we're actually putting ourselves in a lose-lose situation. Nobody wins when we don't show up for ourselves. And trying to show up perfectly for everyone else all the time, for work, for family, for friends, for whatever it might be, is a losing battle. And we just don't get anything from, as the people that surround you, and you yourself don't get anything from that situation. So really, this is a call to take care of yourself in a radical way and to set really strong boundaries with yourself first, which we'll dive into a little bit more in the next couple minutes. So How can we assess our energy levels? So here I have 6 examples that I think are really key in order to decide whether or not you can do something, whether or not you should do something, if it's right for you, essentially. So have you taken care of yourself today? If this request is coming at the end of an already busy day, have you made time to take care of yourself in order to fill your cup back up so that you can then give to this extra thing that has been asked of you, whether it be a phone call with a family member or an event or whatever, staying late at work, whatever it might be? Have you taken care of yourself today? Does the invitation feel aligned, fun, joyous, or exciting? I think this is something that we forget to ask ourselves, but it's one of the most important things. Does this event make me feel good? Does this invitation make me feel good? And if not, why am I even entertaining the idea of doing it, right? Because the purpose of your one life, your one precious life, wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver says, is to feel good. So if it doesn't make you feel good, why are you thinking about doing it in the first place? What is motivating you? You know, what do you think you'll get by doing it? Really dig in to what you're feeling about this. Do you feel capable of giving this person or this event the best of you for the time required? So if a friend needs to chat, okay, do you feel like you can show up in a way that is aligned with your values? Meaning, when I say the best of you, I don't mean, again, this call to perfection. We're not saying to show up at 150%, but can you show up in a way that respects their request? That's why I asked earlier, are you distracted? If you're distracted, you're never going to be able to give that person what they really are looking for in reaching out to you in the first place, or the event, or the situation, whatever it might be. If something is asking something of you, sorry, are you able to give that something? Maybe you give it at 75%, maybe it's 100%, but are you giving an acceptable amount? Are you capable of giving that amount to this situation? Okay. Number 4, does thinking about what you have to do fill you with feelings of dread? This is really important. I think something that we don't necessarily think of, but you've been in those situations where you have an event that you have to go to, and thinking about doing it makes you want to like chop off a limb. You'd just rather be living your own personal version of Saw than do whatever this thing is. Okay, maybe it's talking to somebody, event, situation, whatever, right? We can kind of use those interchangeably for the purposes of this class. If it does, why again are you entertaining the thought of doing it? This is something to really dive into. What do you think you're going to get? What do you think doing this thing will say about you? It's really interesting what will come up. A lot of limiting beliefs can be found in asking yourself these questions, because you'll realize that you're doing a lot of things to please other people, to prove your worth, maybe to strive to achieve something that you feel you need to have in order to maybe keep up with the Joneses or to be a part of it. Because when something doesn't feel joyful, you know that you're doing it for an ulterior motive. There's another reason. Something else is pushing you forward, okay? Because when it's joyful, we do it because we want to. We do it for the joy that it brings us, and that's reason enough. So really sink into these questions. Number 5, do you feel like you're giving generously or compromising and giving in? This is huge. If we go back to the example of the wedding, at the end of the day, I don't feel like I did it necessarily generously. I don't know if I even did it fully willingly. I did it because I felt like I had to. I feel like I had to be the idea of a bridesmaid that was expected of me, and not maybe honoring what I really wanted or where I was at. And that is really important, because I don't think that maybe I showed up as the best version of myself in that case either, because I didn't do it generously. Okay. Number 6, what will be the impact of my decision? Good and or bad. So good or bad is in quotes because nothing is actually good or bad. It's all the perspective that we have of the situation, and the idea that we kind of impose on the situation. But what I'm really trying to get at here is, what do we feel the consequences will be? So this person will be mad at me. That person will love me more. Okay, so the mad being bad and the good being that they will love me, those could be the impact. So if I do this, this person will think highly of me. My boss will view me in a positive light. My family members will appreciate me more. Whatever it might be, what are the consequences? What will be the impact of the decision that you're considering? Okay, because a lot of times we're motivated by extrinsic factors. Sorry, little tongue twister there. So basically, really checking in: does this desire to do this come from within me, or am I being pressured from something outside of me? Okay. Biggest thing. Okay. Biggest check-in of all. What do I need right now? So you might get a strange answer. Listen, please, I'm begging you to listen. So whatever comes up, listen. If it sounds strange or out of character, listen even more, okay? This is the wiser, higher version of you speaking. This is your highest self. She's giving you really good advice. So please, please, please listen and then follow through with what comes up. Really be in a space of being willing to try something new and to step out of your comfort zone, and more importantly, take action, okay? Next, a quick reminder about the other side of the street, because a lot of times when we're setting boundaries, we're setting them, within ourselves, but we're also setting them for other people. So we're setting a line in the sand that says, when you cross this, it's not okay anymore. So we're not able to take people fully out of the equation. So let's focus on the impact that they have on us and vice versa. It's really important here to remember that we are all humans. Regardless of how people behave, we want love, acceptance, and we want to feel seen and heard. See and heard. Oops, instead of seen and heard. We all want to feel understood, okay? When someone crosses a boundary, it is important for us to check in with how we feel about it. But because you are a kind and compassionate person, okay, it's also a good idea to take a moment to imagine where the other person is coming from. People do not cross boundaries just to be an asshole. Not usually, okay? People usually cross boundaries in order to get their needs met. Is this okay? No, it's not okay. But it does explain a lot about where the other person is coming from. So if we can come to this situation with a higher level of compassion, we are better able to see the person who has crossed our boundary as a kind, caring, compassionate human who makes mistakes and is trying their best and didn't do it with any kind of malice, okay? So remembering that this person is crossing your boundary in an attempt to meet their own needs puts you in a better position to respond in a kind, understanding, respectful, and loving way. How much better do you think this conversation will go if you approach it with this attitude? We can also pretend or assume that the person in question doesn't even know that they're crossing your boundaries. We tend to do a lot of mind reading, especially when we feel hurt. We tend to feel that people are doing something on purpose. This person might not even know that they've done something to hurt you, to offend you, to cross a line in any way, shape, or form. They might not even be aware of that. And so if we come into it assuming the best, assuming that this person has good intentions, assuming they are kind, we are way better positioned to solve this problem and to come to a very compassionate compromise or conclusion, okay? So we're just, on the side I say, if we enter into these situations or conversations with an open heart and the assumption that people are good and not trying to hurt us, then we are better able to respond to the situation as the best version of ourselves and frankly, not assholes, which is super important because remember, keep in mind the idea of karma and law of attraction. When you behave as an asshole, you're probably going to get an asshole response back. And that's not what we want. It's not going to get either of you anywhere. So really try to come at it with the most kindness, the most love, the most compassion and understanding that you can manage. Okay, let's get down into the meat of it. So setting healthy boundaries. It's actually quite simple in theory and not so simple in practice. So there wasn't really even a lot to say here. We have 3 simple steps. What are they? What do I have to do in order to implement boundaries? Well, one, I need to be clear about them. I need to be clear about them first with myself, okay? I need to understand what they are and really delineate them. This is my boundary. This is what you cannot do or you can do to me, okay? And then if I want to, I can share them with friends and family and any other relevant people who can help hold me accountable. I'm not necessarily encouraging you here to have a conversation about your boundaries with the person involved. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But what I'm encouraging you to do is to talk about your new values and your new boundaries with friends and family who are outside of the situation, where you say, I've been having a problem with this, but now I've realized that I can't go on and I really am no longer going to tolerate this. And just saying that to other people automatically makes it more real, even for you. So it makes it real for them, of course, because prior to you sharing it, they had no idea, but it also makes it more clear for you. Number 2, understand that you have to honor these boundaries first. So it's not enough to be clear about them, because you do need to be clear in order to be able to explain them to other people, but you need to honor them first. So you need to do what you say you're going to do. You need to keep your promises to yourself. And if ever there was a way to boost self-confidence, this is it. This is the number 1 way to boost self-confidence. When you say you're going to do something, whatever that something is, you do it. Okay. And we could talk about this in terms of like going to the gym or eating healthy or calling your family like you say you're going to, or responding to text messages quicker, or getting dressed up a little bit more often, whatever it might be. But in this case, in terms of boundaries, you need to honor the boundary first, like you are expecting other people to do so. When you break promises to yourself, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. It's a problem, okay? You can't be pissed off at somebody else for not doing what you're expecting of them if you're not doing what you're expecting of them, right? It's just the adage, do as I say, not as I do, does not apply here. You need to do as you say and expect other than people then to do as you say as well, okay? Or do as you do. 3, recognize that you deserve to be honored and respected. This really comes down to a sense of self-worth, which is something that we need to work on for every area of our life. It's not just about boundaries, it's about personal success and growth and everything. We need to really learn to love and honor and value ourselves. But if you don't accept this about yourself, it's going to be damn near impossible for other people to do it, okay? So you need to, again, kind of have that boundary with yourself, really honor and respect yourself, love yourself, appreciate your self-worth first, and then other people will follow suit. They will do the same ultimately. Okay, communicating your boundaries or not. So I think that this is a really important distinction to make, because a lot of times setting boundaries can feel scary because we feel like we have to have a hard conversation with the person who crossed them. I'm not sure I agree. And I think that this might be a unique and or unpopular opinion, but bear with me for a second. I think that sometimes when we want to talk to somebody about our boundaries, it's actually coming from a really selfish place. So we may be coming from a space of wanting to teach someone something or wanting to prove a point. At the end of the day, this is kind of a dick move and not really coming from a heart-centered place. We're coming from a place of getting our needs met, yes, but I'm not sure it's the most compassionate way to go about that. So I really would encourage you to be mindful in these situations of how and why you're wanting to communicate your boundaries with the other person, okay? So do we need to set boundaries? Yes, absolutely, always. Do we need to communicate them with every single person we know or that's involved in the situation? Not necessarily. Our boundaries are for us, and it takes strength and courage to implement them. I think that goes without saying. Look at the conversations that we've had. Think about the examples I've given you. It takes courage to say to a potential employer, no, I'm not willing to work evenings and weekends, at least not without the appropriate compensation, and certainly not all the time, because we're human beings, not human doings. And it would have taken courage and strength for me to say, I can't show up for this wedding right now. I can't show up for these extra events at the moment because I need to focus on my mental health first. Now, I didn't do that, obviously, but it would have taken strength and courage. Sometimes we feel like it's hard for us to maintain our boundaries if the other person doesn't also know about them. This is an us problem, not a them problem. So it's not up to other people to honor our boundaries first. It's up to us to honor them first, as we mentioned previously. In this case, we can sometimes be putting the responsibility of honoring our boundaries on the other person, on the person who crossed them specifically, and not where it truly belongs, which is on us. So we need to set boundaries. We need to have the strength and courage to implement them, but we do not necessarily need to communicate them to other people unless we can do so in a kind, loving, and compassionate way, or unless it is really, really, really necessary. And you will know when it's really necessary. I'm not going to be able to tell you when it is. You'll know when it's necessary for you to have a conversation. But I really want you to be mindful that you're not coming from the place of superiority or trying to teach someone something or trying to prove something, to prove that you know better or to prove that you're right or whatever it might be. Okay. So just again, be a human being, be a kind and compassionate person, and remember that the other person may not be aware that they've crossed your boundary. They may not be aware that they've done something wrong. And so this conversation could take them really off guard. And maybe all it takes is a change of behavior on your side for the entire situation to change. Okay. Examples of healthy boundaries. So these are kind of just situations, let's say. Someone invites me to an event that I don't want to go to. I thank them for inviting me, and I tell them that I'm unable to attend. No thank you is a complete sentence, as we saw earlier in the presentation. Number 2, someone asks me to volunteer my time or expertise. I compliment and praise the opportunity, saying that it sounds wonderful, and thank them for thinking of me before saying that I just don't have the energy to give this kind of event the attention and dedication it deserves. So we have shifted the focus in this situation off of us. It's not that we don't want to. It's that the event is so wonderful, so powerful, so important, and it deserves X amount of energy and X amount of dedication. And right now, we don't have the time or space to show up fully in a way that this event deserves. We are really praising the opportunity. We're grateful for it. And we're saying that it's so wonderful that we would be doing it a disservice if we showed up with what little we have to give right now. So that really, really honors the request that the person made, but it also honors your energy levels. And we've done both. We've really showed up respectfully to both parties. Okay. The last one, a really common one, especially around the holidays. A parent or family member asks me why I'm not blank yet, why I'm not married yet, why I don't have kids yet, why I haven't moved yet, why I haven't done whatever it is, okay, haven't lost the weight or whatever it might be, why I'm not on a diet, who knows, whatever it is, okay? I show up and I thank them for their concern, and I explain that I'm happy with my life the way it is. This can be a little bit contentious, so we want to be careful, but we really do want to communicate that, like, we're okay. And that's what matters, right? You want to tell them that you appreciate that they think of you, and that if you ever need support, you'll reach out and you will ask for it. Say that you're really grateful, though, to know that they're there for you and that you have their love and support in such a big way, that you're really, really grateful for it. You'll notice that in all of these examples, we've expressed thanks, we've expressed gratitude. We really want to appreciate the people who are coming to us, remembering that they don't know that they're crossing a boundary necessarily. And we want to enforce our boundaries in a very kind and compassionate way at the same time. Okay. Some things to avoid, however, in the same sort of scenarios. Okay. So we want to avoid making excuses. It's really a go-to a lot of times because it's way easier to say, I'm busy, or oftentimes to fake an illness or another event in order to avoid being honest. So assess your motives for doing this before moving forward. It kind of goes back to what we said previously. What is the outcome, or what will the impact of this be, good or bad? So if I feel like I have to make an excuse, it's because I probably don't want the person to think blank about me. Really dig into that, because you'll likely uncover a limiting belief that you'll be able to then to work through and move past, which is huge. Number 2, giving in. So you're here in this masterclass because you're ready to make some changes. Just because something sounds like it's a good opportunity doesn't actually mean that it is, especially because you need to have the joy and energy to dedicate to it in order for it to be worthwhile. So please make your decisions accordingly. Number 3, justifying your life or decisions. This is very common also when we're talking with family. You are not here to please other people, and you do not need to justify why you choose to do what you do, as long as you're healthy and you're not harming anyone else. Okay? So that's pretty much it for me for this masterclass. If you have any questions, I'd be so happy to answer them. You can reach out to me, but I'd also love to host a Q&A with you. So if you want to ask me any questions about boundaries or anything that I've mentioned in the masterclass, we can absolutely discuss. If you have other questions that you want to ask me about other topics, you're welcome to ask me those as well. I'm here to be of service and just help as much as I possibly can. So just to kind of conclude, I'm Alessia, as I mentioned previously, and I just realized my hair is the exact same as in the picture that I put. Whoops, but anyways. Yeah, I'm a life and mindset coach who specializes in helping ambitious and driven millennials drop their limiting beliefs and negative stories that are holding them back. I help them connect with the truth of who they are and what they want to do in the world, and then I help them make it happen. Together, we create empowering stories and positive beliefs that help them take action and go after what they want. And you'll see I've got some social media links there if you'd like to connect with me more. I really hope that this landed well with you and that you benefited from it. I hope that you've learned how to assess your own energy and implement healthy boundaries, and how you can show up as a kinder and more compassionate person in the world just by assuming that people are doing things with the best intentions, and they love you, and they're not doing things to hurt you. So those are probably the biggest takeaways. And also that you need to take care of yourself first in order to show up for other people, okay? It's always going to be the most important thing. So like I said, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you in the Q&A. Have the best day. Bye.